So I am supposed to talk to the leaders of Islemerald or talk to King Veliandric to commence the final hearings. Let's see.
Yes. Espin, you are most welcome in Bright, most welcome. Please allow me to express my appreciation for all you've done to this world.
I am glad to receive royal recognition for my efforts. You have done a great deed for the kingdom of Islemerald, and it shall not soon be forgotten. Yes, I intend for you to be remembered in our histories. The negotiations with Derangold are to begin shortly. Are you ready, Lord Espin? So what points remain to be settled? The former rebels have suggested a new form of government, a notion which I have graciously agreed to entertain. Additionally, they have tabled issues of money and the reconstruction of Derangold. This all depends on the conflict being decisively finished, of course. I'm ready to begin, Your Majesty.
Splendid. Let the proceedings commence. Welcome, everyone. I am King Valiant, liege lord of Islemerald and all her cities, towns, settlements, and peoples. Welcome to the delegation from Darren, our guests from the Eastern Empires, and all our other friends and visitors. We are gathered today to negotiate an end to hostilities between Bright and the Crown, and Darren Gould, represented by a council of nobles. Now, let us get underway. The war has been difficult and lengthy, an exhausting trial both of blood and treasure. I sincerely hope the nobles of the Iron City are prepared to talk peace.
Here. Let no one here fear for their lives or safety. You have my word that the well-being of everyone at this summit is sacrosanct. Does this extension of clemency apply to pickpockets, I wonder? Good lords, noble ladies, the first item... The rebel council of Derangal has agreed to cease hostilities against the crown in exchange for certain assurances regarding the future of the city. Lord Blythe, please state your terms of the assembly.
Assembled noblemen, noble women, and delegates. I am Lord Blythe of Derangould. Your Majesty, the council thanks you sincerely, both for your hospitality and for your diligent effort to bring these parties together, that we may resolve our differences without further bloodshed.
Regarding that council's terms, the damage to the city proper and to her mines and people can be repaired if His Majesty is willing to lend the aid of Whistlebright's engineers, laborers and healers. Beyond this, we request only one further boon, the suspension of the taxes levied by the Crown for a period of 6 years. This is our most conservative estimate of the time needed to restore the Iron City and her citizens to their former status. Well, I suppose I should not be surprised, but Lord Belief, before I address to the Council's demands, I will remind the Assembly that the insurrection against the Crown was entirely the responsibility of your rebellious nobility. The Crown's prosecution of the war was nothing but the exercise of the kingdom and my own natural right to defense. And now that your time and resources are no longer drained by the war, the great wealth of Derangal should be more than able to fund reconstruction. The loan of Whistlebright's tradespeople and the healers you are welcome to. However, I propose that taxation continue at the same level as before the conflict, which I remind you again was entirely your doing. Lord Espen, what's your opinion? Derengald must have the freedom to determine her own future. Let the council rebuild as they see fit, but grant them a suspension of regular taxes until the mines are producing at full capacity again. Since the requested help from Iselbright in the form of engineers, healers, etc. would speed this process, His Majesty should grant it, but Derengald must pay their wages as stipulated by their respective trade guilds. I don't agree with this view of things, as it rewards the insurrectionists with a holiday from their financial responsibilities to the kingdom, but I did agree to the concessions, so I will let the point stand. Just see to it there are no more such points. The council's opinion is that the solution is fair to both parties. Thank you for your contribution to this discussion, Lord Espen. To the next order of business. Assembled noblemen, noblewomen and friends of the crown. The second item to be addressed is the trade and taxation policy of the kingdom of Iselmerald, as it applies to her sundry domains, resources and citizens.
The Council of Darren has expressed their dissatisfaction with the Silmarild's current policy in the form of open rebellion against the crown and war. Now, Lord Blythe, what does the council propose?
Your Majesty, trade in Isilmarald has for too long been severely restricted, and its profits heavily curtailed by the crown.
Not only wealthy cities like ours, but smaller settlements like Dalkivar, Crimson Crossing and Thassigro have suffered for years under the burdensome taxation and restrictions on access to goods and customers in the capital. Yes, we all know how unhappy you are. What do you propose? The council recommends that trade everywhere in the kingdom should be allowed to flourish without restriction. Second, we recommend that, setting aside the term of Derengald's reconstruction, every town and settlement in the kingdom should enjoy the same low rate taxation as the capital. Your desire for fairness in all monetary matters is laudable, Lord Leaf, but Iselbright, as a nation economic and political capital, must flourish without check or restraint, for the capital prosperity acts as the deep well from which every smaller part of the kingdom is watered, thus the lower taxes. Let me turn again to the Crown's Council, Lord Espen. His Majesty's King Williandric has decades of experience creating and applying the kingdom's economic policies, and what better evidence of the king's great success in this arena than the curse of greed should take such firm root here. Therefore, Iselmerald's trade policies should remain exactly the same. Here, the crown unreservedly approves. Lord Espen makes a solid point about the curse, but it still doesn't seem fair somehow. We have one final order of business. Esteemed guests, the final item on the agenda, a new system of governance for the Kingdom of Islemerald.
Everyone. After much deliberation, the Crown has decided to relinquish the absolute rulership conferred by royal blood, in favor of a new system that admits some decision-making powers and legislative control to a council of noblemen and women. The essentials of this new order will be codified with the cooperation of the council itself. So the most pressing issue is...
If it please your majesty, the Council of Darren desires nothing more than to resolve our disagreements with the Crown and however, to ensure the persistence of the newfound peace, voices of dissent.
Therefore, we propose a council of 14 people by the 7 remaining members from the Rangald seated here today and 7 nobles chosen by the king. 7 remaining members of the War Council of Darangald, a pertinent detail, I think. The Crown too wishes to leave our disagreements behind and agree that Darangald must have a place on the new council. However, your group represents protection of Islemerald's nobility. Asking for half the seats seems like overreach to me, Lord Aspen. What say you? Representation on the new council should be proportionate to those who remained loyal to Islebrite and those who rebelled. It would not be just to grant extra representation to Darangald simply because they dissented. In the spirit of peace and fair dealing, the Crown agrees. I suppose the council chooses not to object to this arrangement. I believe the main points have now been addressed. Lord Aspen, is there anything you would like to add before we join? No, Your Majesty, I have nothing to add. Very well, then we may conclude.
Thank you, everyone, for participating in this important forum, and for your steadfast efforts to advance the cause of peace. I know that whatever our differences, we all seek the best possible future for Silmarils and her citizens. I confess that the Crown still has doubts about some of the conclusions reached today. The negotiations will continue, and so we adjourn. Good day.